Hey guys, thanks for joining me for this 9th episode of Season 2 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. Special guests for this episode include actress GG Towson. We'll be talking about the biopic of Salt N Pepa that's going to be released this Saturday night on Lifetime. We'll also visit with Bestselling author Jason Pinter about his new book, A Stranger at the Door, which is available now. If you would, please take the time to subscribe, drop a like, comment, leave some feedback, and of course share with your friends. Our first guest is actress GG Towson. Got a brand new biopic of Salt N Pepa that's going to be airing this Saturday night on Lifetime. First off, GG, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show.
Of course. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me.
Now, GG, how much of a fan were you of Salt N Pepa back in the day? And then, how blown away were you by whenever you got announced that you got the role as well?
Okay, so in the 90s, so I'll just give you a idea of where I was as far as age-wise. In 1995, I was 4. So I didn't grow up on Salt N Pepa, but when I got older, of course, they're one of those groups where you don't really know how to pinpoint how you know the songs or where you, pick the songs up from. But as I got older, I knew Shoot, and I just knew What a Man and Push It. So then I had to go back and discover, who they were and what they were about and, what they did in the hip hop game. So then getting the job was like, I was just so taken back, like, wow, I'm getting ready to play, hip hop royalty. Like, how many people can say that?
And to be able to delve in and see the way that they were able to shape a generation of music lovers and music makers as well, and the game for the male females and bringing some female into the rap game as well. I mean, how cool to play that an iconic character like that, especially in the times that we're living in, right?
Yeah, no, it was really great. And just the fact that, learning the story about how they got started and, their first public appearance was them going to Dougie Fresh's high school and dissing him in his own turf. Like, that's amazing. And we go into that in the movie. That's one of the opening scenes that you see, and we're on the lunch tables, and we got a guy beatboxing in the background, and we're rapping on top of the beatbox. It's so dope, and the shots look amazing.
And whenever you have to tackle a character, especially one that's, like you mentioned before, hip-hop royalty, how much extra pressure do you put on yourself to be as authentic and in character, if you will, at all times? And does it bleed over as you leave set while you're in the shooting process?
So as far as getting into character and the pressures that came with it, my pressure was at the very beginning of booking it. I wasn't aware that both Cheryl and Sandy were as involved in the project by way of, looking at audition tapes and okaying girls to go to the second and third rounds. And even after, all of the auditioning, we auditioned over a month and a half, and we still had to get the final seal of approval by, Cheryl and Sandy. So Salt had to sign off on me. And going into our, getting to know each other sessions, I was unaware of all of that. So it felt like a blind date for me. And that's where, my nerves came in. But when I found out that she was as involved as she was, she knew who I was already. So it wasn't like I was coming in as a complete stranger, like, hi, I'm playing you. But she welcomed me with open arms. She was very loving. She, was open and honest and transparent. And, having her there on set and, just in my corner the entire time, picking up who she wasn't far off from me, because we do have very similar mannerisms, very, very chill and calm and collected. I am the same way. So it was more so just understanding how she thought and, her her thought process during certain things, and breaking down the script with her was really dope, because we would go into, a time period that actually happened, and then she would say, okay, so for the sake of the movie, we didn't go into the rest of the night per se of the day, but she still chose to tell me, all of the details of her life. So having her there was more so comforting and very supportive, because any question that I had, she was there to answer. I could always peek around and get her thumbs up on set to make sure that I was on the right track. And things that I take away from the experience in the movie and just, knowing her, is to stand in my integrity, to be true to myself, to, if I need to walk away from a situation, if it's no longer serving me, don't feel bad in doing that, because you got to take care of you first.
That's right. Now, was the filming process, was it done pre or in the middle of COVID situation?
It was pre-COVID, and thank God COVID did not affect our set culture. And I think that when you see the movie and you see the chemistry between everyone, that wouldn't have come across as strong if we were filming, during COVID times, because when we were out in Toronto, that's where we were shooting, outside of working on set, me and my castmates were friends. We, would have cast dinners. We would, on our off days, we would, hang out with each other. We would walk to the mall. We would, go to the farmer's market. We actually had a night out with our wardrobe and glam team. So we were able to spend, real time with the castmates.
That's awesome. And again, the Salt N Pepa biopic is a Lifetime original movie coming up this Saturday, 8 Eastern, 7 local time, obviously on Lifetime. And GG, I always want to make sure and let our listeners know where they can not only find more information about the biopic, but also everything you've got going social media wise as well.
So my social media handle is my name, GG Towson, Townsson, and it is the same across all platforms.
Trying to make it easy on us, aren't you?
Yes, very, very easy.
Well, GG, it has been great to visit with you this morning. I appreciate you carving out a few minutes of your time. Best of success. Looking forward to the biopic, and hopefully we can catch up again real soon.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
All right, guys, our next guest here on the podcast, we were talking before we came on. He probably would have never believed if we would have told teenage Jason Pinter that he had an opening act of a biopic from Salt N Pepa. But we do have author Jason Pinter on with us. And first off, Jason, I appreciate you taking some time out to be on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. I definitely, that is one of those things that I would not have believed if you told me that, 25 years ago or so. I would be like, no, that's a different Jason.
Now, Jason, the new book is out a couple of weeks. It's been out, Stranger at the Door. And obviously 2020 pandemic and everything was made everything different. And how much different was marketing and everything this time around?
Completely. I mean, Hideaway, my last book, Hideaway, came out last March 2020. It literally came out right as the pandemic was really sort of taking off. I think there's sort of like rumblings about it, but I was literally on tour and I was on the West Coast. I live in New Jersey. I was in San Diego for a convention, and a bunch of us were sitting at the bar one night. It was mid-March, and that was when they announced that the NBA season was suspended. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, wow, this is serious. And my tour was literally canceled mid-tour. I was supposed to do several other stops on the West Coast, literally canceled, flew back to New Jersey. Basically, I've not left New Jersey in the past 10 months. So I went from, essentially having like a coast-to-coast tour for the last book to now everything is virtual. So it's crazy. It's, I miss going out and seeing people and meeting readers, but at the same time, like, you got to do to stay safe. But it's certainly the most unique situation I've ever been in when it comes to having a book out. Not only that, but the book came out the week after the insurrection. So my next book will come out during an alien invasion. So just be warned.
Now, where does the inspiration, or actually I'll go back a little bit. When did you know storytelling was your gift? I mean, have you been a storyteller, a ham since years gone by?
Storyteller, yes. Ham, no. I think I'm very introverted. I'm the kind of person, like, I'm the king of the Irish exit. Like, I like hanging out with people, but then I disappear because I got to go kind of like have some time for myself. But I think I always liked storytelling. I was always a reader. That's where it came first. I loved books. I was that kid hiding under my blanket at 2:00 in the morning with the flashlight, hoping my parents didn't know I was awake. And then I just started writing little stories that were basically just blatant ripoffs of whatever I was reading at the time. And then I essentially, as I got a little older, realized like I could kind of do this. I could write a book. And I think I always wanted to get into writing in some fashion. I think originally it was maybe screenwriting, but then I fell in love with books and writing novels. And I've been really fortunate to be able to publish a bunch of my own.
Now, did you have a teacher that really saw a special gift in you, that really invested in you, if you will, as a younger age?
I wish I could say yes, but no. I wish I could say that there was some mentor who took me under their wing and, lit a fire under me and told me I was amazing. But no, that really wasn't the case. Actually, there's one funny story. I took a creative writing class in college. And I talked to a few students who had taken the class before me, and they said, if you get an A or an A- in this course, you're basically set. The teacher is really tough. If you do well in the class, it bodes very well for your future. And I got a B+. So no, I think that, it's weird to say, but like, I think I just put it on, like, I figured it out myself. It's not to sound conceited or anything like that, but, I think I was enough of a reader that I sort of figured out how to tell a story, how to create characters. And, I certainly had readers and people who encouraged me, but I can't say there was like one person who sort of like, lit the fire under me, who would, be my mentor in the biopic of my life.
Now, the series, A Stranger at the Door, whenever you start out, do you originally start out with the idea of a series, or does it just evolve as you're in the process of writing the first one, if you will?
So with Hideaway, which is the first book in the series, I knew when I was writing it that I ideally wanted to be a series. I wanted to essentially finish the first book, wrapping up the plots and story sufficiently, but at the same time sort of leave some unanswered questions that could be continued on as the series went on. The trick there is that a publisher has to essentially agree with you. So you don't really know. I could say I want it to be a series, but they could say, no, we kind of like it as a standalone. This is what we want. I was very fortunate that my publisher, Thomas and Mercer, saw it as a series. I sort of put together like a couple pitches for subsequent books in the series so that they knew I knew where the story was going. I wasn't just like, I want to be a series, cross your fingers for me. But I could say, like, this is where I see the second book in the series going. And if it continues, this is where I see maybe the next book in the series going. So at that point, I'd written a bunch of books. They knew I could write a book, and I knew where the story was going to keep going. And they had faith in me.
Now, as the new Stranger at the Door, this one has some timely message to it as well. How long has this one been in the pipeline, or is this brand new material?
It's pretty big, brand new. I want to say I finished the first draft at the end of 2019, actually, and then was essentially editing it up until maybe spring or summer 2020. So yeah, there are some things, especially in regards to, I think we saw it, unfortunately, the last couple of weeks, just how people, I think especially emotionally fragile people, can sort of get exploited by people for their own selfish needs. And that's one of the main storylines in this book, is that the main character, Rachel Marin, has a teenage son or pre-teenage son who's very traumatized from events from his childhood. And he's essentially manipulated by this sort of like kind of shadowy businessman who's essentially manipulating these emotionally fragile young men who are sort of like, he tells them they've been left behind, that other people are taking their jobs, which is something that is, very familiar to people living in this country right now, that these young men are essentially being told that they're, being left behind, and they can exploit that for their own benefit. And so that was definitely taken from real life a little bit. It's kind of thing like, it's funny when you say something is timely. The storyline for this book was really conceived in like 2019. So if it's still timely now, it means that it's not timely. It means that this is sort of a real problem in the culture, that it's been there, it's still there, and it's kind of not going away anytime soon. It's just maybe more part of the conversation now than it has been, but it's been there for a while.
Now, for you, the heroine or hero that you write in, what is the first part of their character that comes to you in the inspiration? What is typically the first for you?
So me, I started writing this book shortly after my oldest daughter was born. So maybe three and a half years ago or so. And I was sort of looking for a new book to write. I like the idea of starting a series. And it sort of came to me. I like the idea of Rachel Marin is the sort of protagonist in these books. And generally when you sort of think about thriller fiction or mystery fiction, you think about sort of like, sort of a loner, somebody sort of skulking around at the dead of night, who's closing the bar at 3 a.m. and getting into alley fights and sort of, usually has like, paying alimony and child support and sort of one of these like, misanthropes a little bit. I like the idea of having a character that wanted to essentially find justice, but also like had two small children at home who couldn't go out and close down a bar at 3 a.m., couldn't go out and get into random fights because she's got to go home and make breakfast and get the kids ready for school. So she's a protector in every means for her children. But at the same time, because of this trauma that's happened to her, she sort of can't let justice go unserved again because she saw what happened when justice didn't get served to her. So I love the inherent conflict of that, about a single mother protecting her children, but at the same time, just sort of there's a gene in her that made her want to stand up for other people.
Are you one that follows critics, the reviews, any of that, or do you totally avoid those?
I wish I could avoid them, but I look at them. I think like most people, even if people say they don't, I think they do. Whether it's I'm a masochist or something, I do. I'm very thankful that the reviews for these two books have been pretty good. There every now and then you'll get somebody who doesn't like it, and some of them are legitimate, and they say something that like, okay, maybe I should learn that from the next book, and some of them are just like, I don't like the cut of his jib, and what are you going to do about that? So I do read the reviews. But I think I sort of have like a motto, which is like, you're never as bad as anybody says you are, but you're also never as good as anyone says you are. That way you're not constantly depressed, but you're also sort of not resting on your laurels.
That's what I was going to ask you as well, is there any character that you came up with in the past that you keep in your mind? So whenever people start building you up so much, you're like, but you're the guy that still came up with such.
Oh, absolutely. I remember I was at a writers conference. This was probably the first writers conference I ever went to. And I was probably like in my early 20s or so. And I wasn't very good at the time. I really hadn't learned my craft. And there was a writer there who I really respected. And at the end of it, I asked him to sign one of his books for me. And I was hoping he would sort of, you go back to sort of like, was there ever a mentor? This is sort of like the opposite of that. I asked him to sign a book for me. And I hoped that he would sort of like write something very inspirational, something like, Jason, the world is your oyster, or something very like, they'll light a fire under me. And I remember he autographed the book and he wrote, Jason, keep on trucking. And to me, it was just so like, keep on trucking. And it sort of lights a fire under you in the other way. It puts a bit of a chip on your shoulder, but I like having that there a little bit because I think that pushes you. If people doubt you, it gives you inspiration to prove them wrong.
Now, who were the authors that you really delved into, and you were there on release day to pick up all of their works? Who was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it starts off with Stephen King for sure. I think everyone will say that. I grew up, I think, sort of like on epic fantasy. Like I loved, J.R. Tolkien and Terry Brooks and Piers Anthony. And I loved those sort of like 1,000-page doorstops. Then I got a little older. It was Stephen King. I was that kid. Like I remember I went to summer camp one year and like I read it, which is like 1,300 pages long. I think I read it in 3 days at summer camp. So like, we go out first, to play soccer the next morning, and I'm the kid who can barely stay awake on the field because I was up till 4 a.m. reading. So I really think it was Stephen King. And then as I got older, I sort of got into sort of mystery and crime fiction. It was Michael Connelly and Harlan Coben and Laura Lippman, Dennis Lehane, definitely Dennis Lehane. Just people that I thought wrote amazing stories, but also with very relatable characters, and just like kept twisting and kept turning, and just I fell in love with those books, and that sort of made me want to write what I write.
Now, where you're at now with as many books as you've got under your belt, what would you tell the first the author delivering the first manuscript the first time? What would you tell him if you had the opportunity now? I
would just say, man, don't let things get you down, because writing is not an easy vocation in terms of stability, in terms of finances, in terms of emotions. It's most writers don't have an easy path, and I certainly haven't. And there's definitely been times where I was like, yeah, this is the last book I'm ever going to publish, or this industry hates me, or I don't know what's going to happen next. And thankfully I'm here, I think 13 or 14 years after my first book came out, publishing a new one. So I would just say, this is your first book. It's certainly not going to be your last book, but it's not going to get any easier from here. But at the same time, just keep pushing.
Well, the book, A Stranger at the Door, as you continue on in the series, where do you see, how many more in the series do you see progressing?
So I'm sort of putting together what I hope will be the third book right now. So I sort of have an idea for the third book that could either sort of wrap it up as a trilogy, because there was a very specific arc I wanted to see through the book. So I certainly want to be able to at least finish through book 3. My hope is with any series, I want it to go as long as I have stories for the character, and I certainly think I have more. And like with anything, it comes down to, hopefully readers keep coming to it and people want to see more books, and my publisher wants to publish more. So my hope is certainly at least 3, and if not a whole lot more. And I'll cross my fingers.
Now, as you continue in a series, what's the challenge? And obviously you want to keep it somewhat open-ended, but you want some sort of finality. How hard is that to blur that line?
Yeah, it's tricky because it depends sort of how you want to go about the series. Like when you look at Lee Child's Jack Reacher series, which are phenomenal, sort of every book is sort of very much a standalone. Every book can, you can pick up any book in the series and sort of not know anything. All you need to know about Jack Reacher is that he's a nomad, he's a former military cop, and he walks around with nothing but a toothbrush, $20 and the clothes on his back. And that's all you need to know. But I think this story and these characters are a little bit more complicated because there's Rachel, there's her past, there's her children. So it can be tricky to write each book in a way that is sort of a standalone, so that if somebody picks up A Stranger at the Door, they don't have to have read Hideaway. But at the same time, if you read the first book, there might be something somewhat more of a rich experience because there's certain callbacks to that book. So it can be especially for a long running series, it can be very hard because how do you keep the stories fresh? How do you not get sort of how does it not get stale? And I look at someone like Michael Connolly, who has done this, Harry Bosch series for 20 plus books right now. And he's writing books as good as he did when he was starting out. And that's the template to go off of, is to keep a character fresh. One thing is Harry Bosch ages. I think Harry's in his 60s now. So the Harry Bosch you read in his current books is very different from the Harry Bosch you met back in 1990 in The Black Echo. But the characters change and you get to watch them change. I think that's hopefully what I want to do with these characters.
So the A Stranger at the Door, Jason, I want to make sure and let folks know where they can find not only more information about the book, all the previous works, and also everything you got going social media wise as well.
Absolutely. So you can find me on my website at jasonpinter.com. Also Twitter and Instagram at Jason Pinter. All the books, if you search for my names, or Stranger at the Door or Hideaway, are on Amazon or your favorite local bookstore. Or you just Google me and you'll find a whole lot. I'm very easy to find.
There you go. Well, again, A Stranger at the Door, Jason, it has been great to visit with you today. I wish you the best of the rest of the week, and hopefully we can catch up again real soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. If you ever have a comment, question, or anything else you'd like to know, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at GQwithCam. If you'd like to help out in the funding for this podcast, feel free to click the support tab and follow the instructions. If you have a special guest idea, email me gqwithcam@gmail.com. Thanks again to our good friend Brandon Allen for playing the tune for Good Questions with Cameron Dole. We're going to let him play us out. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Back with episode 10 coming up tomorrow.